My name is John Passfield. The title of this reading will be M Montgomery, Video 9, the Duet Duel Part 3. So here is my novel, M Montgomery, I Gave You Life, a novel by John Passfield. The photograph is of the historical M Montgomery, the Canadian author, in the year 1938, or about 1938, in terms of the photograph. Now, in 1938, with another world war looming, and her own personal problems threatening to overwhelm her, acclaimed Canadian author Ellen Montgomery begins to write what she has decided will be her final Anne novel. As she works on the new book, she recalls the days when Anne of Green Gables became a worldwide literary phenomenon and the dilemma that she faced at that time. Whether to write a series of novels in which Anne would perpetually remain the child the world had come to know and love, or to allow Anne to grow to adulthood with all the agonizing torments of the one who had given her life, L. M. Montgomery. Now, in 1938, Ellen Montgomery is a character in my novel. In 1938, she sits down to write this novel, Anne of Ingleside, and she will write that through the 16 chapters of my novel. While writing this novel, in which Anne will be a character for the final time, she's determined, Ellen Montgomery's determined, she recalls the days when Anne was a brand new character, and Ellen Montgomery was writing Anne of Green Gables, especially the time when, after finishing it and the novel becoming so popular, she was given the opportunity to write a series of novels in which Anne would be a character. So she's writing a new novel in 1938. She's recalling the original novel that she wrote in 1905. And this question of what to do with the character, keep her as a perpetual child or to let her grow up. This will be the third presentation of the duet duel between the novelist Ellen Montgomery and her character Anne Shirley. Duet-duel. Let's have a look at the third section of the novel in which the two interact, which will include chapters 11 to 16 of thought in the mind of the main character as she's working on her new novel, Anne of Ingleside. So let's go to chapter 11 of my novel. Anne is the one to speak in chapter 11. We're looking for page 84. And here it is. Okay, so Anne is speaking. Anne is a fictional character speaking in the mind of her creator, of course, to her creator, Ellen Montgomery. I wander around inside the novel. In every corridor, I find a series of locked doors. Sometimes it almost seems that I, too, am confined. You put my mother and father dying in the novel, Mrs. Montgomery. It might have been just a fact for you, just a mention in just a few words, but it was very real to me the moment it was written down. But why can I only find just those very few words? Why are these darker topics not dealt with? Why are they mentioned and then not explored? I have to assume that you included these things for the character, for me, Anne Shirley. And I also assume that you included them for you. Authors should be aware, Mrs. Montgomery, of their responsibilities. Once you create a character, once you write the final word of a book, well, then you give up all control. The characters are free or condemned to live and think, yes, and feel inside that world. If you didn't want me to think about these things, Mrs. Montgomery, you shouldn't have put them in the book. Don't forget, you gave me imagination too. Yes, I think about my parents, though you chose not to write about them. You can't include dying parents in a novel and assume that they won't be seen. Whether you think you have or not, you've opened up the pages and let darkness in. And I thank you, Mrs. Montgomery. I thank you. Okay, she continues on. When you included these dark moments in your novel, in our novel, what did it mean? Why did you include them among the stories? I have to assume that it was very important to you. You cannot hide what you know. You cannot hide what you are. You seem to see yourself as the darker half of me. To live in sunlight every moment would be to have no life at all. It would be a life with no connection to you. If you think of me as your lifeline, as you, whoops, let me get the page straight here. Oh boy, okay, let me read that again. To live in sunlight every moment would be to have no life at all. It would be a life with no connection to you. If you think of me as your lifeline, as you have told me in the past, then think of you as my lifeline too. Well, just let me be myself, and Shirley, whatever she might be, and let the chips or the Damocles' swords fall where they may. That is all a character expects of an author, at least a character like me. And you created me, so whatever I am, whatever I want, whatever I imagine, whatever I demand, is an echo in a very real sense of the essence of you. I want to see more of life than I have so far. I want the sides of this novel of ours to open out onto the big, wide, wonderful world. You seem to have made me more adventurous than you seem to want me, at this stage of your life at least, to be. But wait, don't go yet, Mrs. Montgomery. There's more that I want to say. The death of Matthew, my stay at the orphanage, the deaths of my parents, you have put them in the book. You cannot go back and write them out again. Doesn't everybody get to have a full life? Why can I not go out into the world? Why can I not experience the joys of all the stages of encountering life and making it work? I can deal with any crisis just as you have done in your life and as everyone has done since time began. Will I die in childbirth? Is that what you plan to write about? Or will I just have temporary pain and a glorious birth, perhaps with twins, and be the best mother to them that a mother can possibly be? Well, that was Anne speaking. Here's chapter 12 with Ellen Montgomery speaking to Anne. Let me just get page 92 here. Okay. Ellen Montgomery speaking. They say we dream away our lives. They say we dream and dream and dream. Most people seem to be unaware of their dreams, but I am always in touch with my dreams, and God forbid, with my nightmares too. And writers, as you know, make books of dreams. Sometimes I dream I am other people. I have been everyone I know. What happens when other people dream of me? You know, I've always been called just Maud, never Lucy nor Lucy Maud. For the books I chose Ellen Montgomery as my name. I chose your name very carefully, Anne. A name is one thing about which Juliet is totally and completely wrong. There is something in a name, don't you think? At readings, I sign my books. I sign checks all the time. Sometimes I catch myself signing my name with an E. But Anne, my Anne, what could you propose to write that I haven't already given you to write? I have given you the best of my own ideas. I have given you my emotions and my thoughts. You have described Avonlea in a way that so many readers have come to love. The shining lake, the white way of delight, the people and the events. In all those passages that I wrote for you to say. I can make you a writer of poems, of the earth and of the sky, landscape poetry, as it's called in the trade. There are poems of that nature in magazines. But Anne, oh Anne, No, not the orphanage. Surely you don't wish to write about the orphanage. The orphanage will be there. It will be mentioned in every book, but it will not be written about. We are not that kind of writer, Anne. That is neither you nor I. We do not wallow in the filth and the mire. What I have lived has been so very painful. Take my word, it would be agony to you. If these moderns had lived my life, they would be silent on the gravest topics too. Oh, my Anne, you are so naive. All of these people, Mark Twain for heaven's sakes, are not praising the novels that I might someday go on to write, my darling Anne. They are praising the little girl they love when they read about you. They don't want mud and blood and gore. They don't want the agony that I have endured. They don't want breakdown and decay, their dreams all smashed to pieces on the kitchen floor. They want you, more of you. They don't want me. Oh, Anne, I'm begging you, do not condemn me to only the pain of my days. Give me the dreams of my nights. Give me the moments of bliss that make bearable the pain of the hour. I gave you life. Now give life back to me. Oh, Anne, for heaven's sake, Anne, have you considered the danger of marrying a man who might turn out to be a burden and a detriment, a dolt and a drudge, a dotard, a man who is lost in life? A man without a core, of bearing children who might turn out to be a worry and a curse, of terrifying social events such as war and depression and world famine. Oh, Anne, oh, my Anne, whatever profession you might see as your life's work might be trivialized and stigmatized by snobs and oafs and the thickest dunderheads. Would you want such a life as the moderns would give you? These Callahans and these Kneisters, these Eliots and these Wolfes, they set their stories in the foul latrines of life. I give you life, and you complain that it's insufficient. Shakespeare is oh so right in what he observes. Sharper than a dragon's tooth is an ungrateful child. Okay, that was chapter 12. Here's chapter 13 with Anne speaking 4 times to her creator. Anne of Green Gables is the only world I know, Mrs. Montgomery. Anything outside this book is a world that I cannot see. Anything beyond the covers of this novel is unknown to me. You remember the end of the novel? Oh, silly, of course you do. It was in your mind before it was known to me. Well, I'm poised to begin my future. Remember the phrase, all's right with the world? How often do I go and stand on that very last page? Yes, I'm dying to know my future. Perhaps it will be glorious and grand. I can't believe it will be anything short of enchanted. Why are we born if not for adventure? Imagination draws us on to other worlds. Why should we leave even one of these worlds unexplored? Oh, I do hope you've made up your mind. Oh, I hope you will set me free. Oh, Mrs. Montgomery, what is the life that is waiting for me? And then she goes on and does to say this. Anne of Green Gables hasn't been sunshine every day. There's the trouble with Marilla's eyes. Near the end of the novel, I visit Matthew's grave. I've seen storm clouds over the ocean, clutched at my coat. In the driving rain, hurried to school while glancing up at an ominous sky. So I accept the fact that life will come and get me, no matter where I am or what I'm doing. It will do its best or it will do its worst. I'm ready for all and sundry. That's a phrase that I read in a book. All and sundry means that I want to have a full life. Please, Mrs. Montgomery, you never tell me about your life, but I'm sure that you've seen sunshine and you've seen rain. Please, Mrs. Montgomery, please, you have had a full life, I am sure. What you have enjoyed, would you deny to me? How soon am I to know? How soon are you going to decide? How soon am I to know what my future life will be? Oh, but wait, I beg you, Mrs. Montgomery, do not withhold my future life from me. I implore you to give me a chance. Let me grow up and take the sunshine and the rain. I'll take the darkness in my stride. Make me as human as I can be. Even death in childbirth is preferable, don't you see? What you propose would be death as well. Death in childhood that has no future. You would be keeping a corpse alive, the corpse of the child I used to be. Oh, Mrs. Montgomery, I am begging you to listen. Anne of Green Gables can only live if I'm a true and complete human being to future readers. It will die if it is a fiction, and I am a sham. Okay, that was chapter 13. Here's chapter 14. Ellen Montgomery speaks to Anne 4 times in this chapter. Ours is a very strange relationship, Anne. Not a normal one, I know. There's a very unique rapport between we two. I am the author, you are the character, and I am the one who created you. An orphan Anne is a person without her feet on the ground. I realize that you're grateful to Matthew and Marilla, but in a very real sense, I am the one who adopted you. But the thing is, Anne, the unpleasant reality happens to be that a real orphan grows up, and you are not a real orphan, Anne. You are an orphan in a book. And I hope you'll forgive me, want to protect you from growing up in the world that I have come to know. You recall that I had Marilla say that very thing, think that very thing. You weren't there, of course, as she was thinking, but now you know. Until you told me, I didn't realize that this would be so. I didn't realize that every word of the novel would be known to you. You have more scope for the imagination than I had thought. Ellen Montgomery continues on, speaking to Anne. But I still have power over you, Anne, a power that Marilla doesn't have, and I will use that power with kindness and forethought, I promise you. Yes, I realize that my decisions will affect you. It will affect what happens to you for the rest of your life, and it will affect you what you are able to do in response to what happens to you for the rest of your life. Matthew's gone. I realize, of course, that I can't go back on that, but Marilla and Diana are there, and so are you and Gilbert Blythe. And to put it bluntly, Anne, I can move you all as chessmen on a board. Anne, I did not speak with you in order to ask for your advice. I merely meant to reminisce for a few moments and to give you the news about the forthcoming series of books. That you have given me so much to think about has come as quite a surprise. We're all born into a world in which decisions have already been made, decisions which have a series of effects on our future lives. It's with kindness that I remind you that you are a character. It is with firmness that I remind you that I am an author. I insist that I make this decision on my own. Perhaps here, at this thought, is where you and I must part ways. You will find out my decision when you find yourself living your future life between the covers of our next Anne book. Okay, Anne replies then in chapter 15. Here's Anne speaking to her creator, Ellen Montgomery. I've always thought that I would love to be a writer. I think that a writer must be a most wonderful thing to be. A writer like I imagine you, Mrs. Montgomery, to be. I'd be able to live two lives, or many lives as far as that goes. I can imagine any life that occurred to me. Of course, I live inside a book, so I have no control, you see. I have no control over anything at all. Of course, I wouldn't expect to control the events of my own life. I realize that wouldn't be entirely fair. Not even writers control the lives that they're living day by day. On that, I'm willing to take my chances, just as I did when I was an orphan and looking for a home. I accept the idea that you have created me. But I would also be a writer, just like you, Mrs. Montgomery. I would create a world with my pen and my imagination. I would create the life of a character in my turn. She continues on and continues on speaking. I wonder, do you write books by hand or on a typewriter? Do you take a notebook everywhere you go? Do you wake up in the middle of the night and jot down your ideas? I could write books and send them out to grateful readers. I could get mail from all over the world, as you say you do. It would be wonderful to be the person who brings such joy. So, I'm wondering just where you get your ideas. Do you have a routine that you follow every day? I'm sure that you must be leading a wonderful life. And then we go on to this. Do you base your stories on the things that have happened to you? You said you lost your parents early, that you yourself were an orphan of sorts. Is that the source of the life you gave to me? Perhaps my character's life could be based on yours, Mrs. Montgomery. Did you not say you have a husband and some strapping sons? It'd be fun to model my character's life on you. Perhaps if you told me more about your life, Mrs. Montgomery. It sounds like a wonderful life to me. Perhaps my character could be a writer just like you. Okay, that's chapter 15. And chapter 16, each speaks in turn. So Ella Montgomery will speak first. Let's go to page 126. Only 3 sentences. So, farewell, Anne. It has been so pleasant to talk. I always feel so welcome in Avonlea. And then Anne speaks. I worry about you, Mrs. Montgomery. You have not kept your secrets very well. You seem to have a need to tell me more. Yes, you did. You did tell me about your family when you were starting out on life, when you were optimistic and hoped that things would go well. You once called us kindred spirits while you were writing the book. You said that Diana would be that person for me. And then Ella Montgomery speaks again and says, and now, back to the world of toil. All good things must come to an end. I must put my pen to paper once again. And then Anne speaks. I'm concerned about you, Mrs. Montgomery. You seem to want to have a talk. Is it something about your husband and your 2 boys? You seem so deeply troubled, Mrs. Montgomery. Would it help if you told me more? Would it help if you were to share your darkest concerns? Why is your journal your only confidant? Don't you know you will always have me? I'm inviting you to share your burden with me. And Ella Montgomery doesn't answer. That's the end of the Duet duel in this novel. In the present moment of my novel, Ella Montgomery, I Gave You Life, Ella Montgomery is busy writing the final novel in which Anne Shirley will appear as the character was at the time of the writing of the first novel in which Anne appears as a character, Anne of Green Gables. The distance in time from present moment to memory is from 1938 to 1905. In her mind, the main character assumes that the Anne of Green Gables does not know anything of the life of her creator beyond 1905. Now, the Anne of 1905 is a memory in the mind of her creator, and the mind of her creator assumes that the memory is intact in terms of the character's knowledge. The assumption of the main character in summoning up this memory is that the character Anne of the novel Anne of Green Gables of the year 1905 could not possibly know anything of the life of Ellen Montgomery beyond that year, beyond the information that's enclosed between the covers of that book. The purpose, as Ellen Montgomery tells Anne during the Duet duel, is simply to revive memories of the pleasant life that she, the author, had imagined when she created the characters and the events of the life in Avonlea. The purpose of the memory, as she says, is to refresh and restore her feelings about the Anne world which she wishes to conjure up as milieu for the characters and events of the novel which she's working on now in the present moment in 1938. The struggle of her writing career for Ellen Montgomery is to keep her actual life, the life that she is living between 1905 and 1938, separate from her imaginary life. However, near the end of the conversation with her character Anne, the Anne whom she assumes is the Anne of 1905, Ellen Montgomery tells Anne that she has experienced some surprises during the Duet duel in which they've been engaged. All I will say about this is that the poetic novel is designed to explore the complexities of the activities of the human mind. It is set at the level of human thinking at which we turn the significant information of our life experience into imagery, at which we arrange the imagery of our life experience into patterns. The poetic novel is not set at the prose novel level of thought at which we summarize the meaning of our lives. In being presented with imagery without interpretation, our task in reading a poetic novel is the same task with which you're presented when living our lives. So, this is my novel, Ellen Montgomery. I Gave You Life. It can be found on Amazon where there's more information. It can be found at my publisher's website, rocksmillspress.com, rocksmillspress.com, where there's more information. At my website, johnpassfield.ca, johnpassfield.ca. There's 2 free books, my planning notebook and my reflective journal, 2 full-length books, all about all the topics that such a novel raises. And so if you're interested in writing and all the topics that go along with it, have a look at those books. Just click on the icon. You'll receive those books on screen for free. Lastly, I'll say thank you for watching this video.